The video game industry can be pretty amazing at times. I get great games to play from the masters of their craft. We have amazing consoles with tons of great features that we didn't in the past. It is an amazing industry to be a part of. But sometimes that's not always the case. The video game industry can be a cruel mistress as well. And today I have some terrible news to give to you guys, and that is a closure of another studio. That's right, Cliff Bleszinski has shut down Boss Key Productions, and I want to talk about it really quickly. What's going on, guys? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. And I think a lot of people saw this coming, especially with how LawBreakers and then Radical Heights performed. A lot of people thought that Boss Key was on a ticking clock. It was getting closer and closer to striking midnight and the story being over, and that's exactly what happened today. Cliff Bleszinski put out a message on Twitter, and I'm going to read it really quickly, and then we're going to talk about it. He says, "As of today, Boss Key Productions is effectively no more. 4 years ago, I set out to make a world-class video game studio, and I hired some of the best talent in the video game industry. They worked tirelessly to produce quality products, and while we had our ups and downs, I'd like to think we had fun doing it. LawBreakers was a great game that unfortunately failed to gain traction, and in a last-dash attempt, we scrambled to do our take on the huge battle royale genre with Radical Heights, which was well-received. However, it was a little too late. As for myself, I'm going to take some time off and reflect. I need to focus on myself and family, as well as my Aussie, Teddy, who is slowly fading from us. Video games will forever be a part of who I am, and I hope to make something new again someday. However, I need to withdraw and take this time. To those of you who have supported myself in the studio these last years, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and everyone who came to work for me. Please note that servers for Radical Heights are made up for the near future. Thanks again, Cliff." Now, I've always liked Cliff Bleszinski. Even when he was giving the cold shoulder to Xbox fans, I didn't really take it personally. I know it's all just business, and he was trying to do what was right at the time for his studio and his game. I have always thought him as a charismatic person, a great presenter, and I'll always have those memories of the Gears of War games. But honestly, I did kind of feel that LawBreakers and Cliff Bleszinski himself had a target on their back the moment he came back in the industry, that people were rooting for him and the studio to fail in a way I've never seen before. And that may be because he was uber successful. He created one of the biggest franchises of last gen, Gears of War, the third-person cover shooter that every game basically copied. He struck it rich with the Oculus deal when they sold that to Facebook. He started traveling the world, getting expensive cars, a beautiful wife, and I think people kind of resented him for that. And they were happy when he left the video game industry. But when he decided to come back, whether he got bored of doing what he was doing or just wanted to make video games because that is what he'd been doing his entire life, there seemed to be a sense of, we want you to fail, not only from the people in the industry, but from gamers alike. They were like, "Oh, Cliffy, you're such a joke." And when LawBreakers came out, which I have played, and it is a pretty solid title, not great by any stretch of the imagination, but not horrible like a lot of people would lead you to believe. It is a very solid multiplayer title that exists in a genre that is oversaturated. There are so many great games that people play day in, day out, like Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege, the Call of Duties, that it's really hard for like an indie studio without the backing of a major console manufacturer like Sony or Microsoft to kind of come in with their own hero shooter and gain any traction. And that's exactly what happened with LawBreakers. It was a solid title with little marketing, and it didn't really catch on. But the thing is, unlike other games, we knew about the failure of LawBreakers because the media and fans would constantly post about it every single day on Twitter. Or video game websites would run articles about the user base. Every single week, one week could be LawBreakers with only 1,000 people. Next week, LawBreakers with only 500. Next week, LawBreakers with only 100. And then the following, LawBreakers had 0 people playing. There was a bullseye on Cliffy and LawBreakers, and that kind of negative publicity for an online-only game to basically have no population, to scare people away from LawBreakers really hurt them. And then it really hurt their future endeavors because of what happened to LawBreakers, because nobody bought the game, because there was no online population. People were worried to kind of buy into their next game. And they had to make a next game fast, which they did with Radical Heights, a PUBG Fortnite clone. And it really does seem that LawBreakers and Radical Heights and Cliffy and Boss Key were just kind of latching on to what is popular at the time. LawBreakers was clearly designed when hero shooters was the next big thing, but they got into it too late. And when that kind of all went by the wayside and failed, and the media told us how horrible it was, right, and how not many people were playing it, PUBG and Fortnite started to rise. And they became the dominant thing. And of course, they made Radical Heights, which was probably played more than LawBreakers, but it was launched way into early access. You knew it was a last-ditch effort, but even though they said it was a passion project, which clearly it wasn't. And they even said, Cliffy even says here, it was a last-ditch attempt. And it's hard to gain traction. It's going to be hard for other games to gain traction in this Battle Royale genre, especially with how big PUBG and Fortnite still are. And honestly, Radical Heights just didn't do anything really different. It was such an early access title that it threw people off, and people who supported LawBreakers were probably burned by the studio's decision to basically cut the rope on it and move on, and they didn't want to do anything else or support their next game. So it all led up into this. You know, CliffyB saying Boss Keys no more, the 65 some odd people having to leave and find other jobs. It's a sad day. I hate when this happens, and you know, it's my favorite hobby. I love video games. I have a small YouTube channel here where I can talk and give my thoughts about it, and I wish every game that came out was successful so all these creative artists can continue to pursue their dreams and make amazing games for me and everybody else to play, but that's not always the case. You know, there's a finite number of people out there with a finite amount of money to spend on your product. And unfortunately, whether it was because LawBreakers just wasn't good enough, or it was in a crowded market, or because there was a huge bullseye on the game, it just didn't pan out for Cliff Basinski and Boss Key. But Cliff's a resourceful guy. He'll be back in a couple years, probably with a new idea, maybe at a different studio. And I'm sure the 60 people at Boss Key will find jobs pretty easily in the video game industry. Epic's always hiring, Microsoft and stuff. So hopefully they land on their feet and they learn from the reasons why LawBreakers and Radical Heights didn't set the world on fire. Anyways, guys, that is the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Hit that notification bell if you want to be notified every time I drop new content. We have my Xbox E3 predictions coming real soon. You won't want to miss that. Share this out on social media, and thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Later, guys.